Y'all talking?
Mr. Vernon.
Ready. We're waiting on
Oh,
you.
sorry. I didn't know if you were ready for me to go live or not.
Yes, I am.
Okay, hold on. All right, Jill, are you ready? Okay, I am.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody, to our Voices and the People's Media. We are so glad to be with you this evening. We're going to introduce our hosts. The first one we will introduce is Mr. Derek Scott from Escambia County. He's the Escambia County DEC and all things Escambia County. We will then go to Dr. BJ Brunios, who is the Santa Rosa DEC chair and all things Santa Rosa, along with our co-host that's not here, Christina Forrest. We welcome them. And then we thank Vernon Watson, WBQP TV. He's the reason that we're here. And we are missing our fearless leader, Mr. Jerry McIntosh. He has today off. It is Miss Sheila's birthday. So we just want to say a very wonderful and happy birthday to you, Miss Sheila. Jerry, we're going to miss you today, but you guys enjoy the day and have a wonderful time. Birthdays are fun. Some of us don't count them anymore, and others of us them all the way up to 101. So welcome this evening. As Derek is getting us situated and on Facebook Live and Vernon is getting us ready to go, we do have a special guest that is joining us and that Derek soon will be welcoming. Are we going to do our round table first? Let's go. We can go straight to the speaker.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. I'm going to hand it over to Derek Scott this evening, and he is going to introduce to all of us the wonderful guest that we have for you this evening. Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We thank you for joining us this evening. As Jill said, we have an exciting show for you, but even more exciting is a wonderful special guest that we have for you tonight. And we are fortunate and privileged to have with us, joining us, Miss Ifeoma Ike, also known as Ife. She Ife is an award-winning lawyer, a researcher, and a policy strategist, and the founder and chief equity weaver of Pink Cornrows, which specializes in designing solutions which combine the cultural genius of marginalized communities with her team's background in law, communications, research to advance equity. IFE supports industry leaders across diverse sectors achieve their impact goals and designs data-driven strategies to create safe spaces for historically disenfranchised communities. She is the visionary of Black Policy Lab, which is an annual gathering where everyone is an expert and each is qualified to imagine how we create policies to improve the lives of Black people globally. Her impact library includes co-creating the 3 congressional caucuses, drafting mental health policies, and successfully advancing criminal justice legislations and reforms. She's also been a co-designer of major diversity pipeline initiatives, including working with the late Virgil Abloh and the Fashion Scholarship Fund on increasing the number of Black creatives in the exclusive world of fashion and retail. It is my privilege, and we are happy and excited to have Ms. Iffy with us today. Welcome. How are you this evening?
Wow. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm okay. It's weird to hear about yourself sometimes, but I am okay. I will shorten that for future spaces, but wow, what a day. I am grateful to be here and grateful to be with you all physically shortly.
Well, let's get started. I know I read a little bit in your bio, and the folks have somewhat of an understanding about what we did. But if you could, in your own words, tell people what it is you do, how you became to be who you are, and what your passions are within that space.
Bios provide a little bit of context for folks. I like to, when people ask me who am I always like to say I'm the daughter of immigrant parents, Charles and Bernice Ike, who migrated here from Nigeria. They themselves were children of war. They were in the Biafran War in Nigeria, which was the genocide towards Igbo people, and actually resulted in a lot of different health spaces and nonprofit spaces like the USAIDs and places that we talk about with frequency now. A lot of those efforts were attributed to the Biafran War. And the reason why I raised that is I like to say that I come into the context of equity, like the way many of us come through. Parents that in many ways had unhealed traumas and are responding to the environments that they're in with a certain form of toughness, and at times that can exacerbate how our children, youth are experiencing the world. So I like to say that I grew up in a space where in the house it was coming to America, but once I closed the door, it was Boys in the Hood. And I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. And I think I recently wrote a book a couple years ago called The Equity Mindset. And in the book, I talk a little bit about how while there were things going on around me, policies, poverty, et cetera, in true village format, we all took care of each other. And it really wasn't until I went away to college in West Virginia that I recognized, like, oh, this poverty thing has many different looks to it. And it made me realize in some ways, even some of my own small p privileges. And it had me, without me knowing that I was an empath at that time, it had me really think about what does it mean to live in a society where there are all these supposed benefits towards certain communities, and yet they're suffering as well. And so my political ethos tends to be seen as radical, although I don't necessarily think that it's radical. I think it's informed. And I tend to look at the different skill sets that I have, from movement to research, to being a former Hill staffer, to being, to working in local government. I feel like those are all tools, not just for me, but for the communities that I'm connected to. And I'm always trying to get people that have a recognition of the power, the spaces, and the privilege we have to be in the spaces that we're in. How do you use what you have right now to get us even further than our ancestors before us? And so that's kind of like my philosophy behind how I do what I do. And, due to a combination of probably my neurodivergency and being a millennial that has gone through 3 recessions, I have, been very skillful in how I have moved through different spaces. But ultimately, I always want to assess spaces, think about where the gaps are, listen to and partner with community leaders that are underlooked, and figure out how do we righteously disrupt this thing. So I am a disruptor, good trouble. And yeah, that I think is probably how I got to ultimately now leading a space that supports various types of impacts across the nation. Oh, Derek, I think you're muted.
Thank you. You've been doing this work for quite a while, and you see where we are in 2026 in both the nation, and you've got a little bit of insight into Florida. What do you think the direction is that we as a community, as a collective, as Black folks in the diaspora here in the United States need to do to help move us forward, to gain more political power, to get us out of the valley that we're in, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. And hopefully we'll talk about this more on this call and I'll hear from you all, because I'm always mindful that if I'm not living in the community, then my research mind is always thinking about how do you hear from those that are experiencing what's going on the ground, and also making sure that when we talk about segmented communities, marginalized communities, that from a space of information, we are not treating all marginalized communities as the same, right? That is in some ways what is the gift and the curse of some of the two-party system, one of which has, by default, a larger umbrella. And when we say that it has a larger umbrella, kind of like more money, more problems, if you're not necessarily thinking about all people, then you can perceive it as more people, more problems. I think that we are at a prime opportunity to really, really, really advance in both rhetoric and in policy, but something that has to be visible and tangible to people that are hurting the most and generationally have been hurting the most, a people over politics type of framework. And however you want to position that, some people may look at that like, well, that's way too populist or that's way too left. The trick is to kind of get into this debate about what those definitions mean, in my opinion. I myself probably identify way more left than a lot of people. But whenever I am in a community, I am also mindful and respectful of, what is the history of that area? What is the opportunity at this time? And even though where I may be in another state or in another location, the solution in Florida may feel like incremental, or the solution may feel like it's too slow, I also feel like, well, that's a matter of perspective, right? Are there ways that we can patch harm and also get people enrolled in what the future looks like? And I think that's what's missing, is that we're not forecasting enough of wellness. I think we talk a lot about where the gaps are. We talk a lot about where the pain is, and that is necessary to validate what people are experiencing. But what does it look like to actually bring in that net to draw the future, to create the vision, and to empower them with the tools and the resources to co-build? And that part is something that I think we can't just keep kicking to another party and saying that's their problem. We have to look at ourselves to say, do we really want to co-build with all of our constituents, or do we have to ask ourselves some hard questions about the power dynamics that maybe at one point in time we may have been taught in civic lessons, served the full republic. But I do think that we have to be honest about the ways that the laws that have been passed to include more participation and civic engagement, not only are they being threatened as we speak, so we haven't even experienced the fullness of what it means to have full voter rights or the fullness of what it means to be a woman that can, or a femme person, a non-binary person, a person to just have full bodily autonomy. We haven't even experienced that yet. And so what does it mean to be honest about that and also dream beyond all people being treated with dignity? And I don't know if we've gotten to that place where we say that we want freedom, but I don't know if we've really talked about, so when we're all free, what does that look like? And I think we have to get ourselves to the place where we're not just investing in the fight, but we are also investing in the thriving. And that to me is, I think, part of what needs to happen at the baseline. Now, separately from that, as you all know, we are in a legal conundrum. So when I think about Florida, I think about the recent Supreme Court decision that was handed. I was actually a Hill staffer when the Shelby case was passed, and that also attacked the Voting Rights Act. And so, for people that aren't aware of what Shelby did, in short, certain locations that had a history of discrimination for individuals to vote, specifically for Black voters to vote, had to get pre-clearance, had to basically go through an oversight board, if you will, to say whether or not changes that they would make could actually be granted for anything related to elections, right? That got hit in Shelby v. Holder. Fast forward, the one last provision, right, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, was what the Supreme Court had basically gutted and eradicated. And so when I think about anything below, anywhere in the United States, voting is not safe anywhere. But when I think specifically about anything below the Mason-Dixon, I think about what are we doing before it's always serious, but we should not trust that just early voting or any type of deadline is what's going to get us over the hump. We have to be very aggressive. And this does not take away from some of the conversations we're going to have about debates and philosophy and ideology. There should be room for that as well. And also, we do have to be very intentional about the one-on-one conversations as early as possible with anybody who is eligible to vote as to why they need to show up, right? I like to say to folks, vote, debate me on the other side. Like, I'll have the meal waiting for you on the other side, right? But we have to have that kind of a boldness, and that only happens in community. So I'm gonna stop there, but I do think this is where the respect for community organizers, people on the ground, people that are in third spaces, those are the folks that I believe are going to be the closest glue to how we determine if there's even a possibility of a democracy moving forward. And the sad thing is, they're the people that are the least likely to get the resources to do this type of work.
Can't hear you, BJ.
Oh, BJ.
We can't hear you at all.
We see your mic. We see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you. Change your thing in your input, maybe?
What about now?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay, perfect. You said, well, some of the barriers, to progress moving forward can sometimes occur at the hands of gatekeepers who benefit from the status quo. And so I was listening to you, and I don't know if it was a label that you'd given yourself or if it was a label that people have given you of being radical. I'm wondering what are the things that you would think that the qualities that you possess or the thoughts that you may have or the policy positions you may advocate for that certain gatekeepers who benefit from the status quo would label as radical?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's no secret that I think a lot of people are looking at what's happening in New York City with Zoran Mamdani, for example, and some of the policies that he's advanced. And some of it are policies, and some of it are positions. Um, you know, I First of all, I don't think that I'm going to start with the definition of radical that I use. Angela Davis has this quote where she said, "Radical is simply getting to the root." And I think that's a powerful statement, that radical means simply getting to the root, right? And for a lot of people, that's where root causes and root cause analysis kind of like spawns from. And why is that important? It is still radical for us to talk honestly about not just racism, but anti-Blackness, the way anti-Blackness has been developed in our policies, the ways that we can talk about people of color, but also still be anti-Black, the ways that we can invisibilize and marginalize those that have deeper intersections, including gender orientation, citizenship status, et cetera. And so when I say that, oftentimes what happens when we get closer to election time is that both sides will say that we don't have time to talk about that. And what is even more troubling is that they expect those same bodies to come out and do often the grunt work, and not necessarily compensated for it to advance that work. So that is a combination of both policy and practice that many people would think is just too radical. Another thing is that there are some really strong, Citizens United, for example, Citizens United, another Supreme Court case, has created a really interesting dark opportunity for a lot of politics, what people would call dark money. And that often means that those who have the resources to play a little deeper in our politics are not only playing behind the scenes, they don't have to disclose who they are. And a lot of politics, regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, have this really integral reality with capitalism. So I do believe that stances on capitalism, I call it, when it comes to mine, I try to make sure I call it racialized capitalism, because there is no other brand of capitalism that doesn't require a poor class. And when I think about what it means to enroll and vote within any type of party line, whether it's, Dem, Republican, or third party, or unaffiliated, I am thinking about not just the vote, I'm thinking about on the other side, are you going to tackle, again, what's at the root, which some people would call radical? And you can't get to the wellness of all people, and especially the ones that show up, I'm sure in Florida, year after year, census after census, generation after generation, continually being at the bottom. And we know that capitalism is involved in it, but we're choosing not to address it. That, to me, is a priority of a party that claims that is a net for the people, but it doesn't want to talk about the systems that are harming the people. That is considered radical. And what is deeply problematic for somebody like me is I am not necessarily, I'm okay with the messy. I'm okay with the gray. There's some really good political and movement scholars that talk about, like, there are a lot of contradictions when you do this work, right? You yourself can participate and be a door knocker for a party that at times you argue with, and sometimes that is the nature of the work. I'm just going to call it out. But I think what is disingenuous is door knocking and then the space not being created to address the issues that I am in contradiction with you on. And because you have the power, you don't necessarily feel like you need to give me a seat or a space to address those issues, right? And so I think it's not just about policies, but I do think, like, there's big C capitalism. There are some issues that are related to international policy that I think has an increased visibility, including the destruction that has happened in Gaza, right? That a lot of our electeds just don't want to address. And when you address them, in some ways you get blacklisted, no pun intended, as being, you are not somebody that we can collaborate with. I don't necessarily think those things are radical. I think those things are human. And I think that when we avoid human issues, I don't necessarily know. And I'm speaking specifically to the Democratic Party. I then want them to be aware that some folks are finding it difficult to understand the distinction between them and other parties, but for the fact that visibly there's more representation and that there's more diversity. Yes, there are historical significances that identify an ideology that is actually very clear on being much more closer and now way more extreme towards white supremacy and white supremacisms, right? Which is like the falseness and the mythology of there being a dominant race. So that is clear, but it's not enough to just say we're not them. And I think that that's where people are tired. So getting back to Derek's question about what are some things that I think about in Florida, I want people to also recognize that people in Florida and throughout the nation are intelligent, that while they do know that there is a current government and local governing structure that is fully in line with an administration that cares really nothing about non-white people, that doesn't necessarily mean that the opposing party doesn't have to work hard to speak to these issues that I think oftentimes the Democrats misstep, that the everyday conversation that they think I'm having in my house is about Trump or even about Governor Scott. Like, people have everyday issues that even their local electeds that may be in the same party that they're in have not addressed, right? And so I think that that's something. I can go on and on. There's conversations about real estate. There's conversations about gentrification. There's conversations about displacement. There's conversations, a huge conversation about employment that I personally think is across the board. When you have upwards of 600,000 Black women that have been displaced from work, the largest labor sector disproportionately compared to our counterparts, which is also the backbone of outreach during any election cycle. What is your GOTV effort now? What are you going to say to folks that haven't been gainfully employed and have been displaced from work, and your party as a mass hasn't even elevated it as a priority or an issue? That's what I'm saying, is that there is an out of touchness, and there's also this chilling effect that happens, that when you raise the issue, you are often seen as an outsider and then you're pushed out. And I think that that's unfortunately a pattern that some of us have experienced. And this is also what makes it hard to build a new vision for either a party or even a new party. But I have to caution folks that even when we talk about a new party, there are some disadvantages that are systemic, and money is one of them. And so, that is a conversation that I think is also ripe for a discussion.
I'm going to make sure BJ doesn't have another question before I okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So my job is to share with everyone, and hopefully Derek's going to throw on the screen the flyer. So we have our wonderful guest with us because she has blessed us with being the keynote speaker for the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida's 43rd annual conference. She is coming to Orlando. We're in Northwest Florida and she's in New York, but we're all going to meet in Orlando and on one day, Friday, July 17th. And this is our theme. And so I want to make sure everybody kind of gets to see it, because that's going to be my first question to you. So it's the torches in our hands now. We must be the ones we've been waiting for. The future belongs to those who show up. So to our fabulous keynote speaker, without giving away too much of what you're going to say on Friday the 17th, here's my first question. When you hear that, or when you first heard it, I guess we have to give a shout out. Let me start with giving a shout out to James and Bakari Sellers, because they're the ones that reached out and said, hey, I've got a new friend. James and I are like best friends now, and I think we met over the phone. And so in exactly 20 minutes, we became besties. And he was like, we're going to fix this for you. We've got it. I promise you, this is the right person. And I have to share a story. So you back me up on this one. So we're on this conference call. James, Derek, Iffy, and Jill. And Derek is sick. And so he's already over the conference. The conference we normally put on, we have about a 12-month notice. And this time we had 30 days. And I'm the program and logistics person. So for me, it's horrible, but it can get done. For Derek, it's like, okay, now I need you to do this. I'll give him everything he needs, but he's got to get all that digital stuff in order. And he was like, I'm just so over this. I'm so over this. And if he said like 5 words that have to do with music, and all of a sudden he's popping, he's dancing, he's having a good old time. Cold gone, stuffy nose gone, clear gone. He is dancing. And he was like, oh, we picked the right person. I'm good to go now. Let's go, Jill. So when you heard that title, and all of that's true, you see, he's not saying it's not. That was all true. When you hear that title, what made you say first that, yes, I would do this for the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida, but also what in that title said, yes, I can do this? And what did it mean to you?
So the title is so direct. Part of what we do at Pink Cornrows is a lot of narrative work. We help people structure words so people can see visions. But oftentimes, just like in marketing, you are thinking of what's the right combination. How do you make it pop? Maybe you'll have double entendre. This thing was so direct. It was like, this is who we are. We're the right ones. And also I think right now the concept of the torch, which hopefully, I'll talk a little bit more about this week, can bring different images for different people, right? Torch can be torch bearers. Often there's a legacy component to it, right? So we talk about torches as I think of the image of like the black and white. I think it's like the Jesse Owens of the like in the Olympics, and like they're carrying the torch and they're running, and in many ways, it's that duality that James Baldwin talks about. Is like you're running with this fire that, in some ways, technically both represents the nation that you're in, but it also represents the pain of that nation, right? And the pain that you are carrying, and therefore you are representing some type of barrier that's being broken and some type of newness that is to come. So I had that image in my mind of like what it means. What are the images of holding the torch that resonate for me? And a lot of them, as a former athlete, connect with sports and connect with track and the Olympics. The other side is just torch being light. And how do you still maintain being light, both in a physical lens and in a spiritual lens, when there's so much darkness, right? And just dealing with the reality that people are going through hard times. And I don't think, while I admire the time of, hope and change and how we all felt in around 2008 and 2012, there's something about the contrast of what it means to also validate that people are here and have survived. Some really are surviving some even more darker times that we're in. And then the other part, as you all know, is I was like, and then when does the light not become just a nice lamp? But when what do we need to fire up? What do we need to potentially, burn down? What is it that needs to, be ignited from an energy perspective? But what is it that we also need to be like, hey, I don't know if we can reform this. And I sit with that question. There are some things that I sit with that I don't know if it's about reform. And tying it to even BJ's prior question, that is also, I think, a radical exploration around what are the things that we are beyond reforming? What are the things that we actually need to say, you know what? We actually need to build anew. But you don't build anew without actually getting rid of the things that are not working for us, right? So I was honored to be asked. I happened to have already been on the road at that time. So I was like, I'm a little closer to Florida than I am to New York, from my prior engagement. And so, yeah, I'm always a curious being. I hope to learn as much, from whether the Q&A, or just being in the space, as much as I am sharing. But I see it as a conversation. And if you all remember at the beginning of that call, I was like, it's a luncheon. Let's just have brunch. I don't come into the space as the expert. I come into the space, as a problem solver, as a thought partner, as somebody that hopefully, in that short amount of time, can support the mindset, for those that need the support, or can validate and affirm for those that are doing the behind the scenes work every day, which I assume is the majority of the people that will be in that room.
Yes, definitely. So, I like what you saw. Let me tell you how I came up with the title. We had been talking on this show and just in our spaces and hearing the rumblings and grumblings of, hey, what happens the day after the primary? And people really contemplating whether to, if your person, for whatever reason, doesn't win, do you pull away? Do you go to the MPA? Do you decide not to vote? And it's not in the Democratic space alone. It is in the outside spaces, the 501c3s and C4s, the Divine Nine. It's out there, and it has moving body parts. So it has a heart, it has a brain, it has legs and hands. They just have to move. And so I thought it would be great for us to start the conversation. Like, what do we do? This is our one chance that we're going to have people in the room that are boots on the ground, that are also candidates that are running, to wake some people up, because I think they don't understand that they're part of the problem, or they could be if they don't handle this correctly, should they win. And for those who might not win, that should have won, what does this look like? And so that was the vision of it, and then telling a story. So to give you a little insight, that's exactly what we're doing. So we start off with, you are right, the legacy, the people who got us here, who had the torch, and now they've handed it. The second session is the boots on the ground. It is the leadership of all the caucuses, and then the Democratic Party, they represent a good portion of all the people. And so then the third one is our younger generation. And then we walk into the luncheon to you that says, okay, we have the torch, we have the light, and there's like symbolism through the whole thing. There's torches for lunch. And so what does that mean? Does the light just sit there? Does it shine within? Is it shared? Do you blow it out? Do you do nothing? You sit next to your torch and stay warm? Do you burn something down? And so for people that are stuck in that frustration, how would you suggest they take that frustration? Because it's going to break, it's going to crack. Let me tell the truth. This is what I think, all hats off. I already think, and I can't think of a better analogy, so you guys have to go with nursery rhymes. I'm sure you guys could think of some song that I don't know about. But anyway, because it's not on K-Love. But like Humpty Dumpty, that's already broken. The shell's already cracked in so many pieces. It's just still held together by the inside. But when it falls, it's shattering across the state of Florida. That is what is going to happen. It's not a promise. It's not a think. It's not a thought. It's absolutely what's going to happen. What do we do? How do you take those tiny little pieces, even find them, first of all, and keep them from clustering in their own little groups and creating new little baby eggs? How do we pull it all back together? Because if we don't, we lose everything. And I know that's really loaded, but you're good at what you do, so there you go.
So I take it from another stance, which is, can we be honest about where it may not have been working before? So when you talk about Humpty Dumpty and putting pieces back together, I also come to it from a perspective of did you have a whole egg to begin with? And if the pieces are shattered, that means we get to build another egg. The question is everybody empowered to build the egg, or is everybody about to get fried? Right. And so I don't look at things being broken as such. I look at things being broken as the opportunity to redesign. But if we're not careful, again, and this is kind of like owning the decisions that we've made in the past and saying, if I were to give a Google Yelp review of what that egg was like before, and everybody in our communities that we claim we were supporting and serving were able to give an anonymous review, what would they say? Oh, I saw BJ's head turn all the way to the side. What would they say about that egg? Too much salt? Not enough pepper? What would they say? And this is the part that I think we miss about what we perceive as broken, because the narrative tends to be, we got to get back, right? And we are not honest about the fact that back was painful. Back, you admitting to me that back worked lets me know where you were at positionally and with power. And us being honest about the fact that it is a crime that people have mothers and grandmothers that are sharing the same narrative of what poverty, harm, lack of safety means for them today, doesn't mean that only one party should be the one rebuilding it. It doesn't even necessarily mean that it is a party responsibility to build, right? Because in the words of Ella Baker, you don't necessarily need strong leaders when you have strong people. So for us, I think that there is an ethos around, there's even a cape at times that many of us work, whether we're elected or we work behind the scenes. There's an overinflation of our power. And when you overinflate your power, then rightfully so, the people are going to demand from you to meet them with the promises that you claim that you could do, which may be a little different if it's like, you know what, for us to get to this space where dignity is real for all people, number one, we have to understand the principles of interdependence, right? That we are creating systems and spaces where you being healthy matters to me being healthy and vice versa. And for that to happen, our policies have to reflect that, right? And some of it are the big items like wage and early childhood, but some of it is also like rest. And like, what does it look like for us to look at the fact that like Black women have reproductive health issues at a higher rate than everybody else? And that, I find that to be very interesting, because there are people that will claim that they care about women's issues, but oftentimes it's Black women fighting for other Black women, and they're by themselves for an issue that they disproportionately are experiencing. If we adopted a principle of interdependence, then that would mean that Derek will be the one that's at the hearing talking about fibroids have to be connected to something that is either unhealthy or there's something in our environments. And damn it, I expect all of us to come together and figure out what's going on with my sister over here, right? And I don't think that we talk about what the practice would actually look like for then the people to believe that what the egg that we are creating is a little bit different than the egg before Humpty needed to go. Right? Humpty may have unalived him. Humpty may have been done and been like, I tried. They're allergic to eggs, so let me go. Like Humpty may have just been like, they don't even know what they like. Right? But I say that to say that I don't like to be in despair about things that are broken as much. And this is just for me as somebody who sees themselves as a social designer. I think of, am I invited to co-design? Is this, and to your point about, and even if we don't win, what are we doing post? Can we prepare, from a futurist lens? It's always a possibility that you might not win in the hard W, did you actually win the election? But can we prepare now for what that engagement strategy then looks like if we don't? If we know that there are going to be people that are already going to be discouraged, then can we do something in our narrative now that says no matter what on the other side, this is what it's going to look like, right? And even if we do win, which I'm also nervous about that too, but that's a separate conversation. Are we also able to say, a little bit more than just we're going to hold our electeds, to task? No, can we say that like the first 2 weeks after, this is what's going to happen, right? Planning so that we're not just insulting the intelligence of our people who are living through their bodies. They are embodying the data of neglect. They are embodying the reality of policies that have been promised regardless of the aisle. And so I do think that there's a bit of a humility, as my pastor likes to say. All these things are true. You've got these degrees, you've got these positions, but also you ain't all that. And when you move from a space of I ain't all that, but I am also enough, then you move from a space of a builder. You move from a space of like somebody else could be in this role, and if somebody could do this role better than me, I may need to step back. And that is where, again, getting back to some of BJ's question, I do think that some of the more tense conversations are around if we need boldness, if the possibility is that we could lose anyway, shouldn't we then throw out bold vision? Shouldn't we then throw out, if I may lose it, if they may rig this whole thing anyway, then shouldn't I at least put into existence the thing that I deserve? And how wild is it that it looks like somebody who has the same party as me or the same affiliation as me is trying to shut me up more than somebody who passed away today in South Carolina that everybody is now sending well wishes and condolences, you know what I mean? Like, as if we're going to erase the fact that, oh, y'all looking confused, or is that do we know who we're talking? Oh,
No, we know. We right there with you.
We're
right there with
okay.
you.
Okay.
We right there with you.
I am seeing more people sending condolences to somebody for whatever reason, whatever their motivations were, than I've seen the Dem Party say about Nolan Wells. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. And you're going to try to insult people to let them know which lives matter more. Your tweet may not mean nothing, but it meant enough for you to wish somebody well wishes that literally stood on the side of eradicating voting rights. And then you want to talk to me about what are we going to do about voting rights? Huh? Make it make sense. Humpty needed to go. We're building a new egg. I want new chickens. So anyway, I try to hide that part of me that now y'all see why Derek all of a sudden.
Right. Thank you. Because she said it was just the song, but I think everybody can hear from your own mouth why I got a little bit hyped. Now, I will say, full disclosure, this is now the second time that we've been on screen together that I've had some kind of ailment. Like when we first had our conversation, I was sick. Today, I spent it in the ER. Unfortunately, I didn't have my black ER doctor here with us, BJ, to assist me. But I had a great PA, a black PA, and something to do with, shout out to black healthcare workers. They do stuff for black folks that can be unparalleled. But I say that to say it's not just the song. It is literally your words. Because I just threw my hand up and I had a back spasm. And I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
I'm so sorry, Derek.
No, Iffy, I thought he was going to say I threw my hands up and I was all better. But I have to say, so I didn't finish the whole story. He's right. But it was not what you said. It was the music at first. But when you did the music, you opened his ears because his ears were closed. You have to understand, Derek. When he's out, he's out. Like, I'm here because we have to do this. And I have my own feelings about this. Go ahead, Jill. Yeah, I'll get on. So his ears were closed. But when you said that music, his ears opened up. His body.
Wait a minute. You're right.
His heart came alive. And then it is absolutely what you say.
Yeah.
You have so much knowledge, like power and light that is missing.
Yeah.
And you, like, when you speak it, you can almost see a vision. Like, okay, Dumpty, you gotta go. She wants new chickens. I want duck eggs. I want something like extravagant. If you just open it up, like Humpty Dumpty, go away. Okay, now what? Yeah, let's go. No, I'm joking, but I'm not. But I am.
I think. I mean, no, I don't think we are honest about. So, when we say write the vision, make it plain, I have to remind people that even in death, the one thing that I know a supremacist is going to do is they're going to write the vision of their ancestors. Project 2025 was a manifesto. It was a manifesto that at one point in time people were mocking. And within the first year of an within the day of an inauguration, 100 executive orders. I want people to understand that the intention of when people say I'm my ancestors' wildest dream, they got ancestors too. And so I am intentional as somebody who believes in spirit, as somebody who has seen the manifestation, but as somebody who has also killed their own dreams, both in workspaces, political. We oftentimes, I think this is what frustrates me about the party, even if you don't agree, whether you call yourself a hardline Democrat, you call yourself a progressive, a liberal, a democratic socialist, fighting me that's not fighting me, right? On wherever I fall on that spectrum is not necessarily, it's not the vibe that you think that it is. Right? Because we can get stuck on the nomenclature, we can get stuck on the name, but have we given the same time to vision creation? And that's a little bit more than what do we agree on, right? And so I think that most parties, right, in a nation that was founded by the genociding of indigenous people, the ongoing genociding of Black people, which we don't frame it as such, but it very much is. When you aren't able to, with humility, say that because that is our origin, because that is just as American as apple pie, that we too are susceptible to practice in dominant ways that harm the very communities that we are inviting into this space. We're just a party that's willing to be honest about that. And that means that there are times when we are going to have to be checked. And that until you are able to do that, there's always going to be a little bit of distrust, or maybe a lot of it of distrust as to what does it mean for me to be in allegiance with a space that we're not. What is it? The 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission showed that there was actually no significant change from the 1950s rebellions, what they would call riots, than what people are experiencing now. That's significant. And then when you talk about a state like Florida, where you have legislation like Florida's anti-diversity and local government bill, right? That literally bans funding. But you also have a party that doesn't want to talk about why equity is important. This is what I'm saying. And so I fear that when you talk about party affiliation, when you talk about the torch, if we see the torch as only belonging to politics, we're already losing. Because our people did not get free off of laws. Our people got free because of disruption. If Harriet Tubman didn't get free off of no law, Harriet Tubman was an outlaw. We praise her, but we don't want to talk about the fact that she had a bounty on her head and she broke the law every time she ran and came back and got more people. And this is what I'm saying is that if we keep getting pushback from people that want us to be civil, I'm going to argue and say that while I may choose to be civil because it may be a temporary tactic for what the overall ends is, if you need my people to be civil, that is an extension of white supremacy. Because you are also admitting that you should sit in the condition that you are in the marginalized condition that you're in, and you should wait and you should trust the same people to make a change and a difference. And that's a hard pill to swallow. That may not be how people feel every day when they go home, but by our practice, that's what's happening. And so when I enter into the space, I enter into space with humility as somebody who has served with the CBC and DC, with somebody that has served with people along, even within Black politics. We are not all the same. And I think that's a beautiful thing. My question is, do we ever get the space to talk about our differences and still break bread with each other? Oftentimes, we're getting pitted against each other. And now in the age of anti-intellectualism, we are now in a space where there are different generations that feel like they just get a soundbite from TikTok and now all of a sudden they're an expert. And that is also what we're competing against. Right. And so the final thing I'll say about that is there's a whole other world that is that benefits when we are not aligned about what it is that we have to create, especially in the age of artificial intelligence. Right. And so even now I'm thinking about, in the midst of all of this, how much are we educating our elders about robocalls? Robocalls have now transformed into, fake AI messaging. People are getting tricked in ways that are even more insidious than when Facebook was making fake ads, or at least allowing for fake ads to come through. Like, we're in a completely different technological space that is targeting Black people because, again, whether we admit it or not, the world is still framed as anti-Black. And the world needs to be anti-Black for them to keep getting the gains that they get. And so when it comes to visioning, I do want to ask the Dem Party, what would the Dem Party be if they weren't anti-Black? And do they even know that that's a question that they should explore?
Mm-hmm.
My survivorship may be connected to being connected to that party, but that's also a temporary survivorship, because I also have to admit that because of the way racism is set up, I too practice in my own demise, if not for me, for future generations. Until people disrupt that, I'm no longer participating in this. And that's that fear, Derek, we've talked about this, like when people are thinking about the DSA and even these third party affiliations, the part that they don't want to say out loud is more than just the uncertainty of, well, what does it mean? And we're not building. What they really don't want to say is like, I'm going to have a different type of position. I'm going to have a different type of importance. I may not have the same type of tools or Black car access or whatever it is that they're holding on to temporarily, because the future that you are building has a different power structure. And for anybody who thinks that they automatically know better than their own community members because they're elected, I do think we got to get back to the fundamental that you were only there because of the trust of your people. But when we start not to trust you, you rightfully should be out. You are not granted that seat forever. You are there based on the feedback of your people. And if people are starting to rise up and they're saying, this is not serving us, that should be a space of humility as a public servant. That should not be a space of hoarding. And I think that there is some argument as to whether or not those who are in leadership, however y'all define leadership, are they in a position of being responsive, or are they in a position of hoarding? And that is across the United States. Right. And I'm not trying to be critical for critical. I am trying to get back to what type of egg are we building in the future? Right. And it is one where there are people, whether it's real information or not, they are getting information from somewhere and they're making decisions about how they're going to participate politically. I said a lot.
See, I wasn't even thinking when Jill has said, I don't even want the chicken egg no more. I want the duck egg. I wasn't even, see, sometimes your brain even doesn't allow you space to venture. So I'm like, she want the duck, I want the ostrich. Give me the big ass egg.
This is what I'm saying. Like, and is there anything wrong with that? So, for example, the biggest issue that I had with this whole DEI, and I'll say this really quick, I know that this was only an hour show. The biggest issue that I had with this whole DEI conversation is that y'all think y'all are taking away something that y'all never understood from the affirmative action year. Let's just be clear. If the civil rights laws worked, we wouldn't need affirmative action and we wouldn't need DEI. The civil rights laws aren't working. The backed torchbearers are people, that those who are specifically, because I always want to ensure people know I am aware, specifically those that have had a multi-generational American genocidal experience as Black bodies are the ones who fought for those laws to be passed and are still at the bottom of receiving the benefits of the passage of those laws. And so they still want us to continue dreaming about how to solve for something they already fought and won already. So when we frame DEI and dismiss it. What people need to recognize is that DEI wasn't a magic pill. DEI was another way of trying to make these laws to be fulfilled. But I do think it's a little bit of a hamster wheel. To your point, BJ, I do think it prevents a little bit of dreaming when we think that our participation is solely just to protect. At some point, we got to get into the space of designing. Again, Project 20, whatever, 2025 was considered a joke at one point, but those people have been working on that for years. Some of those people ain't alive, but what they do know that they left behind was they left behind some type of a roadmap that people in power were going to take seriously and try to build. I am concerned that we do not have, and I'm going to say it again, specifically for Black people, a vision that is beyond fighting for rights. Right? I think that there are rights that we ought to all collectively, not just the Black Democratic Caucus of Florida, that everyone should see as a priority, because we recognize that the instability to Black lives is an instability to all lives. But you also got to recognize that Black people have never fought just for Black people. And that's why people are benefiting and have the rights that they have. So in the spirit of reciprocity, this is also about how we bridge build, and a bridge goes two ways. You should not feel like you're going to get in trouble by saying that Black lives still matter. That should actually be at the core of what it is that you're moving towards. And that does not mean it's to the exclusion of anybody else. But when your party starts kind of falling into the space of we have to avoid this, the other side wins. Because if I want to really keep it 100, it is the disruption of Black people that has resulted in the rights that we have historically. And we get Black History Month, kind of, because now it's like this is the quietest Black History Month I've ever experienced in my years of living, and that's real talk. But it's usually we keep it in a memorialized place and we talk about our greats somewhat. We talk about the selective greats, and then we whitewash their legacy because we don't actually want to talk about the disruption of MLK. We want to talk about the quotes that make us feel good, right? MLK was anti-war. MLK was actually exploring way more socialist views before he transitioned. MLK was unfortunately assassinated because of his views on labor. We are not honest about that. And so, I believe that there's a lot of, once you understand your history and you see that that's part of your power, to your point, BJ, you're not limited by the story that anybody's telling you. You not only can dream bigger, you are worthy of that. So Black women not only should be employed, they also should be in leadership. And we should say that and not feel like that's a scary thing to say. Just like if I would say Latino kids should be able to thrive and to have home ownership. That shouldn't be the thing that makes us scary. That should be like, all right, what do we need to do to put into place the tools for somebody to achieve that if that's what they want? And how do we also make sure that we are the front line to any barrier that prevents dignity? And I don't know if we are positioned, and you all have better insight as to what's going on in Florida. I've been doing a lot of research since our last call, but I hope that it's not just about, there's a lot of repair that has to be prioritized in Florida. And I hope it's repair plus. I hope it's beyond just repairing what's been lost. And I don't know if you all have been given the space to dream beyond just protecting or repairing the damage. But I think our people in the barbershops, at the Head Starts, at the fish fry, you tell them, you simply just say, what does living mean for you? You're going to get a beautiful tapestry that is not going to, maybe one person may say Voting Rights Act, but people are going to talk about things that are connected to livelihood. People are going to talk about things that are connected to clean air and clean water. People are going to talk about the things that are connected to a livable wage and affordable housing. And some of those are policy issues, but some of those are also the practice of how do we look at um, the possibilities and the stories of tomorrow, and recognize that if they can see that vision today, then yes, we should move with the boldness today as if those visions exist. Right? Spiritually, that's how I was raised. That if I can see it, God already can do it. That means that God can do bigger than what I can see. If I can see it as a human being, then what the promise is actually bigger than that. Are we bold enough to get to the promise? And I just feel like sometimes we are limited to get in line and to fall in line with somebody else's vision of what they think democracy should be.
Wow.
But that's why everybody don't bring me to talk. So I'm excited to be at this luncheon.
We are absolutely excited to have you. I know that I felt you were talking BJ's language earlier when you said we're going to tear it all down and build back a new egg. I was like, he says that quite often. Well, not egg, but he says tear it all down and build it back up. So I was like, there's something for everybody. I know he wishes he would be in Orlando this week, but it is what it is. Let me ask, certainly I want to invite you. We have until 10 your time, just so you're aware. But I want to be respectful of your time. So I don't want to keep you, if you have other obligations, you are welcome to spend the whole hour with us. But for folks who are unable, sadly, to attend the Black Caucus conference on Friday, but want to hear more of you or read your books, are you on Substack? Do you do lectures? Where can people find you so they can go and subscribe to you or buy your book or books? Where can they do that at?
I appreciate that. Where do I want to be found is what I usually tell myself. Because I'm a full person. I want to say that I'm a full person. My voice can be different in different spaces. My on Threads, my voice there, which is somewhere between like ratchet and it's like politically ratchet, but sweet. My handle is Ify, which is IFY_works. And if people go on to pinkcornrows.com, which is the name of my team, Pink, P-I-N-K, Cornrows, CORNROWS.com, you can pretty much navigate that site to get to like my personal site, my Substack, which is called The Equity Brief, and trying to do a little bit more writing there. And then, of course, my book, The Equity Mindset. Hope people, it's great to hear that people are still picking it up, even though there was a huge attack for the last couple of years on anything that was on equity. But it's really positioned to help teams navigate in times such as this. So yeah, that's where I'm okay being found. And it also allows for people to send requests for various forms of problem solving. Because ultimately, while I do love speaking and I have fun speaking, I love being in partnership with folks on how to solve problems.
I hope that folks in leadership, whomever but I'll do like our president. I'm not talking about one specific person, but I'm just saying folks who are in leadership in the Florida Democratic Party actually hear what you said and reach out for the problem solving. Because I know come April 19th, we're going to have some problems that absolutely need solving. So, that's all that I have. BJ or Mr. Vernon, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I'm good. I love everything she said. Woman after my own heart.
I was going to say he had some. You also woke Vernon up. Normally, he just
right.
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah, Mr. Vernon usually be on mute, but I saw his thing not on mute. I was like, oh, he's finna jump in and say something. I don't know what he's gonna say, but he's gonna jump in and say something. Go ahead.
No, I was
Certainly.
going to do. I thought I was in church. I was going to do some amen.
Well, certainly.
Absolutely right, though.
Yeah, you have spoken truth to power in our time that we've had with you. For
Thank you.
those who are still on the fence in our viewing audience, you don't have to be a member of the Democratic Black Caucus. You don't have to be a member of the Escambia County Democratic Black Caucus or Santa Rosa or Okaloosa or Walton or any of hell. You don't even have to live in the state of Florida if you want to travel to Orlando. Again, I will put it back up so that everybody can see it and has access. It is this upcoming Friday, which is July the 17th. Did I do it wrong? I think I did it wrong. No, I got it. This Friday, July the 17th, at here in Orlando at the Rosen Center Hotel, which is at 3840. Wait, did I get it wrong? 383941 International.
9840 International Drive.
Thank you. 9840. I'm all right. 9840 International Drive in Orlando. If you have questions or you want to know more about how to register, please reach out to the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida. Well, just be for real. Reach out to Jill. She can tell you how to do it. And that's treasurer at DBC or treasuredbcf at gmail.com. Again, that's treasuredbcf@gmail.com. You'll have a wonderful opportunity to hear from Iffy. In addition to that, you'll also get an opportunity to hear from candidates, statewide candidates, candidates from our area, from other areas in the state of Florida. It's a wonderful time. There might be a little bit of drink involved, so come join us. Again, it's a one-day opportunity on this Friday on July 17th. And certainly I want to say, certainly I know Jill and BJ both echo the sentiments that we appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. I think, certainly I've gotten a couple of texts like, where is she at? Where's she going to be at? So now that means that folks might be, Jill might have a little bit more work to do in terms of registration, but that's okay. It's for a good reason. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you on Friday. Again, we have, you touched on a couple of things. You talked about Nolan Wells earlier. You mentioned that we're going to be covering that and a plethora of other things. The man who, I won't even say went to the upper room, because I don't know if he went to the upper room, but he went someplace.
He took the elevator down.
We're going to talk about that. So we have that until 10 p.m. your time. You are welcome to stay with us and engage.
No, y'all go ahead. I'm here now. I'm here listening. Y'all go ahead and jump into your hot topics.
Yep. So there's where we are.
Jump in and share. So this is all open.
Yeah, jump in. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. Just jump in. We are going to transition into our points of things that you need to know here in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, and things that you just need to know here in Northwest Florida. So I will start with Mr. Vernon first. Do you have anything that our audience and that the WBQP viewing audience needs to show? No.
No, not today.
I want to plug your radio show.
I know a lot of things. As soon as I hang up, I remember them. But
you don't want to plug your radio show?
Well, you have to check out Morning with Vernon every morning from 6:30 to 9. You're missing a treat. I can tell you that.
I do have a question. Did you find out where Stephen Norman was going to be? Because he wasn't at the candidate forum that I was at this Saturday. Was he at something else?
I'm not sure, Derek. I thought he told me he was going to be that. What church were you guys at? It was at
Macedonia. I was at Macedonia on Saturday.
Yeah. I don't know. He said it was coming in on Saturday, on this past Saturday. I can't remember what. He just said a political forum. I didn't say when and where.
Yep.
I assumed it was the same one you guys were sponsoring. I don't know.
Oh, it wasn't us. We didn't sponsor that. It was Macedonia's.
Okay.
Event. We just participated. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We will move on to Santa Rosa. BJ, do you have anything for the good of the order?
Yeah, we have our monthly Democratic Party meeting, which is going to be this Thursday on the 16th. And then just a reminder to everybody that Angie Nixon is going to be in the Panhandle, who's running for the United States Senate. And she will be in Gulf Breeze on the 29th of July. We're going to have breakfast with Angie. So just come on out if you're available on that day to meet a United States candidate.
Making us look bad. I was going to ask you, had you done your planning? Because we just found out this weekend that we had something to do. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. So you've already got your event planned. That's wonderful. Good stuff. Okaloosa County, Jill, what do you have?
No, it's good to be here this evening. We also have our Angie thing planned out, but I'll get to that in a moment. We have our joint meeting. Do you have the flyer, Derek, by any chance? There's a joint meeting of Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, Okaloosa, Walton, and Bay County of the Black Caucuses, the chapters here. And we are graciously going to be joined by the Florida CFO candidate, Earl Ford. That is on this Tuesday. He will show up at 6:30, but the meeting opens at 6. Everybody is invited. There is the information. You can reach out to any Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, Walton. We all have the information, and we've even invited some friends from Bay County. This is an opportunity, of course, to hear from our CFO candidate and ask the hard questions. This is, we do this every once in a while, and I think it's been probably a while since we've all come together, so this should be good. Everything seems to be falling right on this week or next week, so it's a little crazy for us, but you are invited, and it's via Zoom, so it is time now to do part of what you're hearing, and that is ask the hard questions, get educated, because it's more than just going to vote. And then the Okaloosa DEC, which is the Democratic Executive Committee, will meet the following Tuesday in Niceville at the City Council Chambers. That's at 218 North Barton Drive. And then we have our chat and chew with Angie Nixon on July 28th in Crestview. So if you are interested in joining us, please let us know. I know it's, I believe it's 10 to 12, and she's going to do at a breakfast location and do a chat and chew. She's been, I think, to Pensacola, right, Derek, before. She hasn't been to Santa Rosa.
She did a listening tour before, but
okay. Yeah. And so, you know, I always do this plug. I don't know if BJ agrees, but I think he does. You know, that the Panhandle doesn't go from Tallahassee to Pensacola miraculously. There's a whole bunch of counties in between, and so it's good when candidates realize that and they stop in every single county. It's important for the people to not just buy into Northwest Florida, but to be a part of it by representing every single candidate. So we are excited that Angie has made that decision. And then I just want to do a special plug because school is about to start. It seems a little bit further away, but it's probably because I don't have any school-age children anymore. And so July 18th, in Allen Park, Crestview is going to be there, do their famous school supply giveaway. And so that is literally this week also, July 18th at Allen Park in Crestview from 12 to 3. That is all I have. I'm sure there's a whole lot going on, but that's all I have for this evening. I will hand it over to Derek so he can tell us all of the wonderful things going on in Escambia County.
Well, thank you for that, Jill. I guess what I will do is I'll go in chronological order. I'll start with saying it's something to be said. There's something to be said for candidates who are on the statewide ballot looking to represent all of Florida, who actually want to spend time and come and speak to Floridians, particularly Northwest Floridians in our area and earn their vote. So having said that, what I will say is that tomorrow, I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. There is, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because we aren't invited. There's a fundraiser for Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who is running for United States Senate. He's coming to Pensacola tomorrow at sometime 7 o'clock. He wants to take your money, but sorry, here, let me get it for you. It's Monday, July the 13th, around 6 to 7:30. It's a closed thing. You have to pay either $100 or $250 and give him money. But he don't want to talk to you as a voter. He just wants to take your money. So if you choose that you want to participate in that, that's on you. But you can reach out if you need information. You certainly can reach out to either Jill or BJ or myself, and we will be happy to share with you how you can give him some money. And maybe ask your question at that time. I don't know. But as we move forward, going forward, as Jill mentioned, the Escambia County Democratic Black Caucus is happy to join our neighboring partners in Santa Rosa and Okaloosa and Walton and even Bay for the conversation with CFO candidate Earl Ford. As many of you know, he's running to be the CFO. And if you're wondering what the CFO does, this would be a great time to do so. But I will tell you, for those of you who own your own homes, this would be a great opportunity to see and talk to the person who potentially has the most influence on your homeowner's insurance that you're paying. So this is the time to hear from him. Again, that is Tuesday. It will be posted on the Santa Rosa and the Okaloosa and the Escambia Democratic Black Caucus of Florida. Escambia County Democratic Black Caucus's Facebook page. So please feel free to look there and get the Zoom details, or again, you can reach out to either Jill or VJ or myself for that information. Moving on, as we know, next week, and I'm doing so because we won't, just to put everybody knows, we won't be here next week. We'll have a week off because all of us will be in Orlando for the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida conference, and then we follow up with Leadership Blue. So we won't be returning until late Sunday night, about 10 or 11, so we won't be with you. But I do want to make sure that everybody takes advantage of the opportunities that are out for things to meet and hear from the candidates. And I'll start with the first one, which is on Monday. There is a school board forum for Escambia and Santa Rosa County. There's school board candidates, which is going to be on Monday, July the 27th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Pensacola Library, which is at 239 North Spring Street. So if you are a registered voter in Escambia or Santa Rosa County and your school board, you're in a district where your school board office is up for re-election, this would be your time to come out and hear from them and see who is going to shape the future moving forward. As we then move on to the following week, on Tuesday, that very same day, we actually have the Escambia Democratic Party will be meeting, and we will also hear from Earl Ford. So if you aren't able to join us for the meeting on Tuesday, certainly if you wait till next Tuesday, he'll be there and available for you as well. But if we move on to Wednesday, the 29th, there is a Pensacola mayoral candidate forum, and that's sponsored by the League of Women Voters, the NAACP branch 5124, which is my branch here in Pensacola, as well as our very own Movement for Change. They will have a mayoral forum. So please make yourself avail yourself of those opportunities that we have moving forward. And lastly, on July the 29th, and we've heard it, but I want to make sure we reiterate what is happening. Angie Nixon, who is the senatorial candidate who wants to come and talk with you about what your issues are and earn your vote, will be in Northwest Florida. Again, as Jill said, or BJ said, I guess we're first. It will be Chat and Chew from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And I just realized if that's your time, Jill, I can't do what I need to do, what I want to do, but we're going to figure it out. That's okay. And then on Tuesday, you say what?
That you guys were doing the afternoon and evening, so that was the only choice we had.
Yeah. All right. I get it. But if on Tuesday you'll have more information about what we're going to do here for Angie on Tuesday the 28th. And then, as BJ said, there'll be a breakfast on Wednesday morning in Gulf Breeze. So again, this is your opportunity. And then she'll be further on for those in the viewing area in Walton County. She'll be in Defuniak Springs on Wednesday, the 29th, and then Mariana and Jackson County that day as well, with stops in Chipley, Caryville, and Blountstown. So she is covering every county in the Panhandle because she wants to talk to voters and earn their vote and really talk about what issues are impacting them. And then finally, I do want to make sure that we continue to plug on Saturday, August 1st, the Northwest Florida Panhandle Coalition for Civic Engagement, along with about 13 other organizations, will have their 2026 legislative session debrief, which is going to be held and run by Equal Ground, our partners and friends at Equal Ground. And it is Saturday, August 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at Hearst Chapel AME. Now, the time seems a little bit misleading because the doors open at 8:30. If you'd like to join us, we have free breakfast that will start at 8:30. And then we will have breakfast from 8:30 to 10. We will go into our debrief with Equal Ground at 10 a.m. We will break for lunch and you will have a hot lunch. And that will be from 12 to about 1. And then we will go from about 1:15 to 2:30, 2:45 and talk about our voter plan and our get out the vote plan for folks in Escambia, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, Walton, and Bay counties. So if you join us, as you see, it's sponsored by Equal Ground, the Panhandle Coalition for Civic Engagement, NAACP in both Okaloosa and Escambia, the League of Women Voters, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Families for Strong Public Schools, Movement for Change, Will Women Radio, Sisters of Hope, and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pensacola chapter. So we do invite you to join us. Please register if you're joining us. If you see right there, there is a QR code at the top of your screen. If you scan that, it will take you directly to the registration and you join. All right. Well, that takes care of all of our announcements. Let's talk about what's happening in the news. Well, as Ify said, somebody went on to glory or the opposite of glory, whatever that looks like. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham transitioned on July the 11th, and he is no longer with us. And I wanted to read something because somebody made a post that I thought was very befitting, and it made sense. And some of you may know our the political strategist and our good friend to the show, Ms. Nikki Barnes. But Nikki says, Senator Lindsey Graham has died. During his Senate career, he was a leading supporter of the Graham-Cassidy effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act. He opposed legislation to restore the Voting Rights Act and For the People Act. He supported voter ID and proof of citizenship proposals and back-ending affirmative action in college admissions. May South Carolina's next senator be committed to the principles of liberty and justice for all. What say you all on this untimely departure? Was he up for re-election? He's not up for re-election this year.
He just won his primary.
Oh, he just won his primary. Okay.
Let me tell you something. This is like an episode of Scandal. Let me tell you why. Because on Scandal, anytime you think something about to happen, something else go down. We all just knew Mitch McConnell was going to be next. And then Shonda Rhimes said, no, he not. we taking old Grinder Boy next. And so I'm just wondering when we gonna have the party on Grinder first. I think we should celebrate on Grinder first, and then we can let y'all know how that party went down, because we know he was living it up on 4th of July. The Lord wanted to take him, because I was just reading that he died of an aortic dissection. Now, for all of you all out there who don't know what that is, that's basically, if you have an aortic dissection, you like 96% of people who are diagnosed with that do not make it. And so the Lord knew he wanted to take him out, because he like, I'm going to give him something 96% of the people don't survive. And so it was just his time, and it was gloriful to see. And I hope that he is wherever he deserves to be.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's Iffy again. So I have a couple ways of looking at it to add on to that list that that person raised, right, as to the his record. I'm looking at this other list of things that he also had done so that people don't forget, right? He helped secure a conservative supermajority on the SCOTUS, right? And Graham blocked Obama's nominee in 2016 when Scalia had passed. Scalia had passed 9 months before that, and he said that he believed that voters should decide. In 2020, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she dies 46 days before the election, and Graham, he backed an immediate vote within a day, and then he runs the hearing himself. When it comes to the attack on everything from TPS to asylum denials to limited restriction to health, because oftentimes we talk about things like abortion as if it is an isolated situation when it's really about full health care. He was a part of all of those things. There are a lot of mixed sentiments. He never came out publicly as an individual who himself was a part of the LGBTQ community. And also, we are aware that in queer narratives and in queer history, it is often the suppression of identity that powers and fuels people to not just be or participate in oppressive tactics, but almost as a way of covering and hiding, who one is. They then have to kind of hyper exacerbate their position and their power. Now, I am not one to determine. I think there are a lot of people who know more about his personal practices, but the two are related in the sense that even if you don't necessarily know what that world is, he was a single white man from South Carolina, which for all of us that know in politics, that also means that there are certain ways that he played on a very white male patriarchal hyper masculine way of performing politics that unfortunately, because he's in the Senate, meant that everything that he voted on had national ramifications. And I don't think we should run away from that truth. There's so much more that I could say about that, but I want people to recognize that in 2016, he was a never Trumper. And I think that that's important to highlight, that he was actually super opposed to Trump at one point in time. And then all of a sudden it felt like he was his lapdog. And if there's a bit of empathy that I do have as it relates to the potentiality of what it means for him to maybe have experienced a little bit of marginalization in the ways that we have experienced it in a huge way. I absolutely believe, whether real or in his subconscious, that who he was, however he was was something that he had to actively fight against and continue to prove to the Republican Party that he is just as violent and he is just as oppressive as they are. And I don't think we talk honestly about what that means, that a lot of the attack, especially on LGBTQIA individuals, are because individuals are trying to prove a certain form of, again, white supremacism, the mythology of whiteness being dominant and white maleness being dominant. Lindsey Graham, unfortunately, played that until his last day. And I want people to hold that. He possibly thought that he was going to outlive this administration. And unfortunately, he transitioned as being one of the biggest supporters of Trump. He had a career longer than Trump, but he is going to be remembered for that. And I don't think anybody should have to shy away from it, because while he has gone, we are living with the consequences of the votes that he made.
Absolutely. Agreed. Well, so certainly, I won't even say that. Here we go. I agree 100% with what you said. I was just going to say, I do feel it is unfortunate. I would say his family is not his politics. So I'm sure they're suffering. So thoughts and prayers to whoever his family is. And, may you find comfort. That's all. Any other comments? Mr. Vernon, I know you got something.
Now, let me know. I'll get Mac and Mix if I start talking. So let me shut up.
The only thing I would add is I think that transition from a never Trumper to a Trumpian lapdog, I think that there was some information that was presented to him that certainly aided and abetted that transition. And while I don't have proof of that, and I will say allegedly, since this is being broadcast on television, I will say allegedly, it just does not seem feasibly possible, particularly at his age. And there's just a certain level of I don't care when you get to a certain age, unless a threat has been held over your head to make that form of transition. I mean, this man was radically anti-Trump and went radically in his pocket. The only way that could happen is if he was presented with some information that he did not want the public to be aware of.
I don't know what he was. If you're talking about his allegedly homosexuality, that wasn't a secret. Everybody knew it. Who was he fooling? Himself?
Well, denial is a long river.
It is. Let's talk briefly about Nolan Wells. This is an unfortunate story that I know many of us have heard. Yes.
Before we get to note, because I know Nolan going to be a little lengthy story we need to talk about. But before we get to that, just briefly, what do y'all think about Mitch McConnell? He's more important because isn't Kentucky have a Democratic governor? Don't they?
They do. So the way
Mitch
the
dies,
laws.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's. I think that's really important, Vernon. Even though Mitch, so I am of the belief that Mitch has also transitioned, and I will say allegedly, but that is just, and things come in threes, so I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it there.
My fingers crossed for the third one.
I mean, listen, I just, I do not identify as a part of a coven, but for all those who are spiritually doing their thing, don't let nobody stop you. But in Kentucky had passed a rule that, whereas in other states, the governor has the power to appoint. In Kentucky, the most that can happen is a special election. And a lot of people are noting that what is actually happening is a little bit of a play on the timeline, because after a certain while, a special election cannot be called, and that seat will just basically stay vacant until January. Mitch was already going to retire. So we already knew that this was going to be his last year. But we also don't want to, minimize the fact that when you are a senior in the Senate, there's a lot of power and a lot of relationships, what have you, that that are there, some of it symbolically and some of it otherwise. So the Democratic, what I do know is that I think as of late, the Democratic governor has called for there to be some type of options presented to him as far as if there were to be a special election. Are there some other individuals that also I don't want to misquote, but he has made a statement that he has asked for some type of, it could be evidence, some type of information. We do know that there is a picture now circulating, supposedly of Mitch McConnell today with his wife in a hospital with supposedly today's newspaper. I do think there's some folks that are saying that it looks like it is AI. He ain't got no medical band. There ain't no wires connected to his body. I thought his wife was in China. There's just like so many things that are off. My main thing is forget all that. If you are really alive, then where's your statement to Lindsey Graham, right? Like, I think that there are some things that seem very off, that if you're actually alive, you would actually be saying your condolences to your fellow Republican who just transitioned. So I just think that while it's a little bit of a limbo, I actually think that unless you're part of the Republican Party, I feel like it's a mess that everyone should just grab their popcorn and let them see how they maneuver that. I do want to highlight that I think there is a brother named Booker who has run before, who I believe is running for that seat, or that people have raised and elevated for that seat. And that there is also the person that that Lindsey Graham was going to be running against, a woman, is also, in position to potentially take that seat. So I do think that folks need to be looking at the 20 seats that are up. I believe it's 20 seats that are up come election time for the Senate alone, including these special elections that are potentially going to happen. So, I mean, from a political perspective, it is a fun time. But I don't know if we're going to get any sense on the Mitch McConnell seat anytime soon. But there is a picture. Y'all look at it. Y'all let me know what y'all think.
We're going to have to check that one out. I don't know that I've seen the photo. BJ, what'd you say?
It came out late today.
Yeah, I saw it. I said he looked pretty well, considering the reports that. I'm just saying it from a physician's perspective. I'm like, this man looked better than what he looked like before he started freezing every other sentence, 2 months ago. And so I'm like, he definitely should have put out a statement about Lindsey Graham. If he doing as well as his statement in this picture say he is, he should have had more than enough energy to say something about his friend. I don't know.
I get you. Well, let's
routes eventually, though, so we'll know sooner or later.
Yep. Let's transition a little bit to the death of Nolan Xavier Wells, who was an 18-year-old Mississippi college football player. This situation has drawn attention because many questions about what happened have still remained unanswered. What we know is that Nolan Wells from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, which is in Jackson County, traveled with his friends by boat to Horn Island, which is a barrier island in the Gulf Islands National Seashore, on the 4th of July. And according to authorities and public statements, Wells became separated from the group during the afternoon, and that group eventually returned to the mainland without him. And when he didn't come home, his family reported him missing. We also know that a large search involving local authorities, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Cajun Navy, and the National Park Service and volunteers followed. And on July 6th, unfortunately, the world found out that the searchers found the body of 18-year-old Wells along the shoreline of Horn Island. This was unfortunate. It it's something that we know all too well. But I want to hear what you all's thoughts are. I have this one hits a little bit close to home with me, and I'll share why later. But um, Bill, I want to hear BJ. What do you guys think about this situation?
No. Um, I can't imagine. I have two boys. Um, and I think I've watched the mom talk a couple of times where she said, you want to trust that when your kids are, especially that age, it's not like he was under 18, he's 18, he's at college, that the people that they call friends are truly friends. And that she knew that if the situation was differently, he would have never left that island without them. And that's what she would have expected. Every day there's somebody else making sure they lift this up. And I think there's obviously the whole cell phone thing. There's not a child in there. I would say 10. A friend of mine, his son is 10, 12 now, 12. But since he was 10, it's, I need my phone. Where's my cell phone? I need my cell phone. I need my cell phone. You're not leaving. You're not ever going anywhere without your phone. And then the dad said, you would expect that if you got back and your friend wasn't with you, you would have got back to bring more people to go look for him. Like, that's just like automatic. Like, we don't know. He fell off the boat. Whatever the case might be, whatever it was, you would immediately be calling on your cell phone or his, since you had it in your hand, 911. Or, hey, there's a situation. He's missing. He's whatever, because they knew that he wasn't with them. I think at first, you hear all these stories. So at first I was like, okay, so was he really with the girl and the girl did it? Was he with the kid? But she says she brought him back to his friend. So that means there's a lie. And then you have the mom that's a judge. It is so convoluted that I am glad. I mean, I know a lot of people, there's like two sides. So there's the side where they're like, yeah, well, they did the autopsy and they said that he just drowned. Well, of course, that's what they're going to say because of all those things. They're white. The mom's a judge. And it's blowing up. And I think for those parents, they deserve to know the truth. What they do with that truth could be just as devastating. But I would want to know why it is my son went out with y'all and y'all came back and he did. And I deserve to know that. And if I go to your house like the dad did and ask for his keys to the car that's in your driveway, you come out disheveled because you actually got some sleep and tell me you can't find them. And then some girl calls you and says, oh, they're next to the Xbox, which means you knew where they were in the first place. It's just so much of this that is the life that you really live. Like, we live this all the time. And you think, my kids aren't here, so one's in Arizona and one does live in Florida. But I worry all the time because you just don't know. And I was somewhat shocked, I will say this, to see so many people not of color on the TikToks and Facebook saying, wait a minute, something's not right. Like, we're trying to be, this one lady was like, I'm trying to be who I was brought up to be, to say that this is okay. And this happens over and over and over again. It's not okay. So for me, I was like, so just some people are sort of, you have the cover up, but at least they're waking up to say, hey, none of this makes sense, because I can't even understand why I'm still stuck on the phone. Why would you have even kept the phone? You did whatever happened. Why do you have the phone? Because if he fell overboard, the phone would have been with him. If you left him there, the phone would have been with him. But you're on a boat and I can't understand the story of why the boat, something happened to the boat and the pump and who cares? You got home. Did he go underwater to try to fix the pump? I'm just trying to understand. Like, you got to give me a little bit more than you were taking on water, but you still drove the boat home and he didn't get on it. It just, none of it makes any sense. And I can't imagine being in that scenario of having to tell this story over and over again. And everywhere you go, like, and then she said, I'm going to stop talking. She said, and this has got to be, try not to get choked up, but her youngest son, her other son, looks just like him. So every freaking day she sees him. She sometimes calls him his name. Did you imagine? For her and for him? Because, Mom, I can't now be that son that you want. That, you know, there's just so much that weighs into that. So much.
What are your thoughts?
There are many things that are shocking about this case. Many of those things Jill has already outlined. What you haven't outlined yet that was shocking for me was this was a family from Mississippi. I'm from Louisiana. There is deep segregated history in Mississippi and Alabama. So one of the things that was shocking to me is that this kid was by himself with a bunch of white people, because the lives in Louisiana and Mississippi are very, very segregated. The neighborhoods are literally still segregated in New Orleans, where I'm from. And so I was having this discussion with my family, and my mama told me straight up, she's like, I would never go anywhere and be the only Black person in that. It just would not happen even today. She would have never allowed that, you know, to happen with me or any of us. It's not even something that I would do at this point in time. And it's more so because of my upbringing. I'm going to be honest, and this is going to maybe sound harsh, is that I was really brought up to not trust white people. That's just the way I was raised. That's not to say that all white people are bad. That's not to say that all white people have negative influence. I was just brought up to not be trustful of them, and that there is always a potential for harm to come to your shores when you are the only one in their company. And so to this day, I just try not to be the only one. And so it was shocking to me that a family from Mississippi would be okay with their Black child being the only one in an all-white space, to go offshore on a boat to an island with no cell phone signal. That was shocking to me. That's not to victim blame. That's not to say that they should have known better. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just saying that the facts around that just was shocking to me, because I was like, oh, maybe we didn't progress more than I thought we were, than I thought we had. So other than the things that Jill outlined that are obviously about the case that are shocking, that part was shocking to me too.
See, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what's sitting with me at this moment, and I really want to hear your perspective, Derek, because I know you've been sitting on like why it hits home for you, is the way that Black people have to continually go through collective grieving, and that there are similarities around the way inconsistencies and lies and gray matter, and people never have to be straight about how Black people die. To be clear, his body is already gone, but to know that we also have to go through this type of sleuth detective work is because there's an erosion with the system, with several systems. I just saw a couple days ago that now allegedly the Coast Guard is supposedly saying that there was a call. Somebody did make a call from the island. And as somebody who is an attorney who knows that there were already some ethical issues with a stepmother of one of the young boys using her official title to persuade the public, I was like, yeah, the system, the informal, there's a system and then there's a system. And the system that works and has power went into effect like that. I'm talking about like that story was already tight locked before the public had even heard about it, right? We would call that in the legal world conspiracy. Let's see what happens if it's determined that there was a conspiracy, at least on the back end, to cover, and whether or not there is a conspiracy that resulted in his death. That is yet to be seen. And Florida's own Ben Crump is one of the people that is a part of this. I will say that two things that I do think sticks up, which may in some ways give some color to what BJ was raising. This is a town in Mississippi that up until this point, a lot of people said that they practiced the belief of color blindness. And in a lot of ways, I see some of that in the parents, right? That they were extremely hopeful that this area that also did have Black students. I'm glad that there are more videos that are showing up with that Nolan was with, Black community members. There are apparently a lot of Black young people that are at their home, just trying to make sure that the mother is okay and that the family is okay. For the life of me, even if this was a crew of our people and something happened, whether nefarious or an accident, you're going to get at least one that's going to put out a statement like, ma'am, I just want to let you know your boy was my road dog. I miss him, whatever. The fact that it's radio silence, I'm not talking about policy. I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking about just human beings, that it is radio silence, that not a single homie is like, I'm a poor one for Nolan. Nothing. To be honest, even if you wanted to fake the funk and you were a part of something negative that may have happened, you still going to show to the public that that was my boy. None of that is happening. So there is something that feels that I feel saddened about as to the way that he may have regarded in his heart for his people, the people that he determined was his people, and they're not necessarily holding that for parents that I still think are showing up gracious. I do want to say though that I dig these parents because, to be honest, she was the one that was calling him. She was the one that was looking through his Snapchat. The daddy went to the house. He had to go to the house to get the keys. So I do believe that we all live in a little bit of duality. And while these may have been his friends, for some of them as long as elementary school, supposedly or allegedly, I do think that the parents also acted in a quickness. That I think comes from community, comes from parenting, that they didn't just sit back. And I'll end with this, that the saddest thing, so many sad things came up from the press conference, but when the father said, I would have went to go get my son, but I didn't have a boat. That to me, to your point, Jill, that to me, of nobody even volunteering to lend him a boat, to go find his own son, means that that man stayed the whole night not having access to search for his own child in a place full of boats. And I'll just end there.
What I will say is I'll give my preference, because some of the folks who have known me forever will say, well, wait a minute, Derek. I grew up always the only Black child. I went to a Lutheran school where I was the only Black child, right? And even when I went to high school through the IB program, there were other Black children, but I gravitated to the people that I knew, right? And forever, I was the only Black child in a group of doing social outings in a group of white people. And never once did I thought, would be concerned that some harm would come to me. It's never been a thought. Now, in present day, I would never let my child or my niece or my nephews ever be in a situation where they are the only Black child, and I'm not sure. People say times change. I think it's still the same, but it's just such a vast difference from how I looked at life as a teenager. And still, I mean, even now to this day, if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have done the same thing. Uh, I, I don't know. Like it's different. Now, having said that, many of you know, and give me a little grace. I have on my mother's fraternal side, they are from Jackson County, Mississippi. So I spend a lot of time in Moss Point, which buttresses to Pascagoula. On the other side of the interstate is Gaucher and then Ocean Springs. I'm over there a lot, right? And what I do know is that there's probably not a sole white person that I would ever trust in Jackson, Mississippi. And it opens up a wound. And, I apologize to my family if I'm out of bounds, forgive me, but I have a cousin who was murdered in Jackson County. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. It's during the pandemic. He was celebrating his birthday in Jackson County at a hotel room, and a white female hotel clerk gave his hotel room key to 2 white males. And in video in the hotel, you can see through surveillance them trying to push the door open, and my cousin trying to barricade himself against the door. He ultimately was unsuccessful, and they brutalized him and murdered him. Jackson County, Mississippi has the identity of the hotel clerk and the 2 white males who took my cousin's life, and they still walk free today. No charges, not even an investigation. You clearly see the struggle from the exterior of the room, and you see them leave the interior of the room, from the interior of the room. And he was alive and he's now dead, right? And nothing happened. Nothing happened. This is the same folks in Jackson County. So to BJ's point, it is surprising that, because I know my family are like, never let that would never be the case where they would be the sole Black person. But it is surprising to see. I think even in Ocean Springs, I'm a little bit more surprised because they don't have that large of a Black community there. So it's not surprising that the friend group is a little bit more imbalanced racially, but still it's Jackson County, Mississippi. And I think all folks in Mississippi in total, but certainly in Jackson County, know what to do and not to do. So it, to BJ's point, not victim shaming or anything, it is surprising. And the fact that their social media accounts were scrubbed, they've maintained radio silence. They didn't want to give the phone to the mother's friend when she came to get the phone. There are allegedly text messages that have been deleted. All of these things, the reports say that they searched the area the prior day where his body was found and there was no body. And then the next day in that very same area, there's now a body. There's just a lot that doesn't add up. And I hope we get the answers to the story. I remain pessimistic that we will, but maybe there'll be a little bit more because Ben Crump is involved, but I still don't think so. These are cautionary tales. It reminds me of, I forget the lady who, was that 5-6 years ago? The Black mother who went on a sleepover with the friends and then woke up dead in the backyard and nobody knows anything. These things happen time and time again without resolve. And it's troublesome. It's problematic. It makes me angry. And at what point do we say enough's enough? I know the Hebrew Israelites marched in from Moss Point, Mississippi to Ocean Springs, which is a very long way. But they marched over the weekend there, and they tried to demand accountability. I don't know if that will shake life into it, because that's a large organized gathering of Black folks in that part of Mississippi. It might shake some things up. I don't know. It's unfortunate, and I hope, certainly, my thoughts and my prayers are both with his mother, his brothers, and the family, his father. It's just tragic, and I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. Mr. Vernon, do you have
At the very least,
go ahead.
I think the only thing I was going to say was, at the very least, I'm glad that Crump, who I've known since law school, and also had worked loosely with him at the beginning of Trayvon's murder, that they asked for an independent autopsy. I think the one power that folks like Colin Kaepernick and what his organization is trying to lead is to take all of our trust outside of systems and create our own tools for inquiry and discovery. At the very least, I hope that the parents know how he died, because that is also something that that will haunt anyone as to like, what was it? And so I really hope that autopsy yields, something. Obviously healing takes time. And that is a spiritual process. What I do love is, along with collective grieving, they are unfortunately in a fraternity and sorority that nobody wants to be in, of not just losing a child, but losing a child in the way that you lost your cousin, Derek. So I want to also say I'm sorry that that's how you had to lose, not had to, that's how your cousin transitioned. I'm glad that we're not silent about it. If I don't know if this town ever thought that they would be spotlit in this way, but there are a lot of people reflecting on being the only, or being, looking back at the times where you knew you had to be a different type of kid just to belong. And as human beings, it is natural for us to want to belong. So I think I love that in this conversation, we are clear that we are not victim shaming, and that belonging is natural. Nolan, through his own account from the mother, identified these people as people that were his friends, and therefore she believed that if he can trust them, I can trust them, right? And that's what every parent wants for their child. But what I love is that as a community, we're not leaving them behind, and they're not alone in this. And I know that's a weird thing to say, that there's solace in that. But that's the thing that, I have a lot of thoughts about Hebrew Israelites, child. I mean, you mentioned Hebrew Israelites, and, we all have a lot of, jokes or memories or what have you, because we know how they are, but it's all love. It's like intra-community. But when I saw that display of that purple and that yellow, I said, it's only one or two groups. It's the Qs, or it's the Hebrew Israelites. And some of the Hebrew Israelites may be Qs. So like, you never know. But I say that to say that marching, as MLK says, that marching is often the tool of the oppressed, right? We wish we could do more. But what I love is that we're all doing what we can. And I don't think, to the mothers like Jill and I don't think we're going to let up on this, whatever the outcome is. And those boys may actually have a harder time, whether they walk free or not. Nobody's going to forget. Nobody's going to forget. And I hope that people that are in the state of Mississippi call their local bar association and question whether, I believe her name is Miss Judge Ashley Simpson or something like that. Somebody can verify. She should not be on any bench. If she herself, I believe she had admitted that she had told the boys, in her statement, she told the boys to deactivate their accounts so that they wouldn't be bothered, and she didn't want anybody. Well, I consider that obstruction of evidence. So I think people need to, at the very least, activate the power that they do have and contact the bar and say that we do not feel that this person is fit to sit on the bench and that they acted unethically. And I do think that that's something we should also be calling for.
That's good. Good stuff. Yes.
I wondered what the headline would have been reading or what's in the news cycle had it been in reverse. A white boy left with 3 white boys and came back without them, you know?
We would never know because we don't do that.
Well, that's true. But more importantly, they would have been in jail before they even found the body. Well, you wouldn't even have to worry about it because they
Jail.
They wouldn't have made it to the jail.
No, they'd have taken them to jail first. Now they might not have made it in jail.
No,
Right.
right, exactly. That's true.
They'd have got to jail, and then all of a sudden something would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I don't think it would have happened. Not in Mississippi. In Mississippi, there ain't no way white parents would allow a white child to go out to an island with an all-black group. It just wouldn't happen. Or that white child would be considered a rebel. What you doing hanging out with them? Why are you hanging out with them? I know Mississippi and Louisiana culture. It would not happen the other way around.
Yeah.
Unless that child was considered a rebel. Why you want to be black? Is that what it is? Oh, you must be getting into trouble. That kid would have to go through a lot in order to be the only white child on a boating trip with all black people.
Also, we just move different. Like, there gonna be at least one of us that gonna be like, I roll with Jesus. I roll with Black Jesus. Like, we just roll. Somebody gonna say something.
Right.
Somebody contacting their cousin, they getting something off their chest. Like, and I say that with a smile because we just roll different. Like, I want to at least hold that these are young people. And I think that's the thing that I hope people listen to is that there used to be this thought that, like, you know, I don't believe that necessarily people are born bad or racist, but I do think that racist tendencies are learned and then they're normalized. And I do think that when we hyper focus on racist societies, we don't focus on like how the village moves. And when you are raised in village, my dad says lovingly, I love you. And I'm going to make sure that we do everything to protect you. But if y'all do something crazy, y'all kill somebody, it ain't killing like in the way Moses had to kill. Like, if you just out here killing somebody, I'm gonna have to love you from wherever you're gonna be serving your time, or you're gonna have to run away. Because I can't. And I'm saying that in a way that, like, while we used to laugh and joke about it growing up, we have a different form of justice and accountability that it is actually, some of the conversations I've been hearing is not just that it was one friend, it's like a cadre of friends, and they're all operating in a way that I think for us, it would be hard to find 7 to 8 Black children, young people that would all conspire in the ways that we have seen the one and only, when it's the one and only of us. We just don't have enough precedent where that's the case. And that's ironic given the way we have been portrayed in media as being hyper-violent, as being the aggressors. I mean, we know through lived experience that that's not real, but I do think it's worth what Vernon raised. I have asked many times, what if this were in reverse? And some of the responses, we don't do that, and I find pride in that. I know that doesn't mean we don't have bad people and people don't do bad things, but I just feel like as a village, that's not how we are.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I wish the best for his family, and hopefully they will get the answers that they so need and deserve, and go from there. I do hate that. Well, no, I don't want to belabor the conversation, so I'll just leave it at that. We are at the time. We're past time. We want to thank you for sticking around. We thank you for joining us again this evening. Please know if you have something you want to share, you want to debut, you want to have a conversation, or you just want to be in community, our Voices is always a home for you. And we appreciate your willingness to stick around with us this weekend. Jill, what you got?
Thank you.
I just want to tell you that not only have you changed Derek, but Vernon kicks us off the show at 9:01 our time, 10:01, and it is 14 minutes after, and he actually had something to say at 9:10.
Yep. Yep.
So we are like in his programming into another show. So
Yep.
you are the definite right person. I promise.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I'm not a perfect person, but I'm a passionate person, and I can't wait to see y'all this week. And I believe in us collectively. Your backyard is my backyard. So I appreciate that you all will be holding me and hosting me this week.
And you may hear from BJ at some point going forward to have you
Who put in this picture?
on Blueprint. On the Blueprint. I'm just letting you know.
I thought y'all would appreciate that. How well looking he is, huh?
I was wondering, okay, is that the picture? Lord have mercy. Okay.
Go ahead, Vernon. You've been doing your job.
Vernon, you got jokes.
That picture. That's
I
why
kept
we
wondering.
still.
I was like, is that your next program? I was like,
I was like,
what? Like, that's supposed to be
Mitch
the new program
McConnell.
coming
I
in.
mean, Mitch McConnell.
got it now.
I got it. We got it. It just took me a minute to see it. I was like, oh, that must be his next program. But we thank you again.
I thought Mitch jumped on the call. I was like, I didn't say that.
It wasn't me. Like, it ain't got nothing to do with it. Right. But anyway, we thank you all for joining us. Thank you for sticking around with us. Again, please remember we will not be with you on the 19th, but we will return on the 26th. So please make sure you check your voter registration. Make sure you sign up for vote by mail and take part in one of the many activities in Escambia, San Rosa, and Oklahoma County in the upcoming weeks. Have a great week, everybody. Take care, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.